It's Pride Month, where we are all forced to celebrate the sexual preferences of a minority of the population. And while most years it's just been some rainbows and a few parades, this year it's been kicked up a notch and a crotch. In 2023, it's not enough to be just regular old gay. You gotta be trans or non-binary or whatever the plus stands for in the ever-growing LGBTQ acronym. But as a straight person, I have to wonder, how does this sit with the non-woke members of the gay community? So I'll ask. Joining me now is political content creator Becky Weiss. Becky, it's great to have you back, especially on the kickoff of June Pride Month.
Thank you for having me, Tomi.
So I follow you on Instagram, and you were one of the first people that pointed out all this nonsense at Target. And of course, now it's really gained some steam. But I really want to know what the actual gay community, the non-woke radical part of the gay community, feels about Pride Month and where it's gone, especially now in 2023. It seems like it's much different than what it used to be.
It certainly is. You know, what started out as a movement for equality and love and acceptance is turned into pure debauchery. And that is the only way that I can explain it. You know, it used to be a march where you'd get together and meet other people who are in the same community and form good relationships and friendships. And at this point, it is basically one giant sex party, which I want nothing to do with. And I also want nothing to do with what Target's doing. It's embarrassing.
That's got to be a little insulting. I would think it would be insulting. If you're just somebody who is a gay person, I don't think anybody, even if you're super Christian, super conservative, cares if somebody is gay or lesbian or bisexual or trans. I don't think people care, but it's got to be really insulting when you have companies and executives and marketing departments saying, hey, listen, let's target this group. Let's put rainbows everywhere. Let's stamp the word queer on a notebook, and that'll make sure that this community buys from us. I mean, it feels really condescending.
I mean, I do find it to be extremely condescending, and I will never purchase any of that product because it is not a staple of my personality or my identity. And they're pandering because they think that if you're gay, that's your entire personality. And if your entire personality is based off of your sexual orientation, you have no personality. And that's who they're pandering to. It's embarrassing to me because, frankly, I'm a normal person. I just want to be left alone and live a normal life. But this gets thrown in our face extra every single June.
I wonder how other members of the gay community, with your posts and you being so outspoken, and you and I have talked about this before, but since we're going into Pride Month, and I've seen you be very vocal about this, do you get pushback from friends that maybe are not the woke part of the LGBTQ community, but that say, oh, you know, you're insulting me, or I find this offensive? Do you get that feedback?
Frankly, no, I do not. And I think a lot of people anticipate getting some sort of pushback or getting canceled or harassed if they speak out against the narrative. But that's what they want you to think. That's why they pushed silent majority, so you would stop speaking in fear of getting pushed back on. But I have had a couple little pushes here and there, but frankly, they're just internet trolls who are looking to stir something up. Majority speaking, like 99.9%, everyone is on the same page. Nobody likes what is happening, and yet it is still happening.
Going back to that first clip that I played from the actress in Target, and she was almost in tears because they moved the Pride stuff to the back of the store. I don't know, Becky, but I have a feeling that if Target started putting MAGA hats and Bibles in the front of their stores, I have a feeling that the left would go pretty berserk about that. Do you sense some hypocrisy here? I mean, I haven't seen a store try that, but I imagine it would be a lot more than a boycott. I imagine it would get pretty hot and heavy pretty quick.
Oh, it would be horrific. And there's a massive double standard, obviously. You know, whenever they put out Memorial Day things, it's like a couple little trinkets. Okay, well, our servicemen and women deserve a lot more respect than that. But they focus all of their attention on this woke narrative, right? And it's embarrassing. Nobody wants to walk into a store and be assaulted with, you know, sexual orientation, everything. Because you're right. If they put like MAGA things in there, God bless America things, anything having to do with Christianity or religion, it would get shut down by the left like that.
Well, we remember in the Summer of Love 2020, not only was Target boarded up because of the looting, but they also had a lot of pushback about putting up American flags. I mean, there was a time, and to some extent it still exists, where people are triggered by the American flag, even though they live in the United States of America and enjoy the privileges in the United States of America. But I want to go back to what I guess is an unofficial boycott, right, of Target, of Bud Light. I mean, it's been pretty successful. You see the market cap at Target sinking. I mean, they're kind of in trouble. Bud Light, certainly in trouble, like a 30% drop. I mean, they can't give that stuff away. What does that tell you about consumers? And do you think that that is in any way anti-gay?
I don't think it's anti-gay at all. Like, I'm not going to go buy Bud Light. I'm not shopping at Target because I don't want anything to do with it. Now, I do see that all of their stocks are crashing, that their sales are going down, but I don't think that these companies are going to change because they're not there for the consumer. They're beholden to these, diversity, equity, inclusion, the ESG scores. They're beholden to all of these things because that's how they get their funding. And losing their funding by losing their, CEI or their ESG scores would be more detrimental to them than losing their conservative customer base. So in my opinion, I don't think that they care that we are all walking away because they care more about the funding that they're going to get or lose from the banks if they don't bow down to the woke agenda.
Yeah, that corporate equality index that these companies live and die by, and it's really a shame. But I want to get your take on something. For me, I have more respect for Target than I do Bud Light and Anheuser-Busch, and I'll tell you why. Because at least Target, they're sticking by their virtue signaling, right? They are really not backing down. Yes, they moved it to the back of the store in some places, but they're not saying that they're going to get rid of any of this stuff. And we know that they are still full woke, right? Bud Light, on the other hand, they never owned up to what they did. And now, to me, it's rather insulting when they just try to put out ads of like rednecks eating chicken and drinking beer by their pickup trucks. That, to me, is more insulting than what Target is doing. I mean, Target is telling us who they are. At least stick by it. Do you think that either of these brands are going to recover? And if they do, which one do you think will be first?
Well, I certainly hope that they will recover, especially whenever you're looking at something like Budweiser. That is an iconic American brand, and it is being destroyed in front of our faces. And I really wish that they would have taken full ownership of the situation and just came to it, but they drug their feet and they've never taken ownership of the situation, which is sad because whenever you see an iconic American brand such as Budweiser start tanking, like, yes, we are boycotting with our dollars because we don't agree with the agenda. But you also have to realize, like, that's a lot of jobs in our neighborhoods being lost. That's a lot of money being taken out of our communities. That is a lot of regular, good-hearted people who are down there in the working force who are now looking at job losses because of these boycotts. So it's really kind of a bittersweet situation for me. I hope that Bud Light can recover because it is an iconic American brand and it always has been, but it has taken such a dark turn.
You're right, and that is sad about the job loss. I mean, I know somebody that's been communicating with me off the record that just got laid off from Bud Light because of everything that's going on, and most of the employees don't agree with it. And in fact, they're telling me that Anheuser-Busch in general doesn't agree with it. It's actually the company that owns these brands, InBev, that's the wokest, and they're the ones that refuse to change course. So that's really unfortunate that's impacting Americans. But the last thing I want to ask you is, when it comes to all the Pride nights and the Dodgers nights and all these things, I'm a little perplexed because my husband is a baseball coach. I go to a lot of baseball games, and I go to baseball games in New York, right? Not a conservative place. But I'll tell you this, every weekend I go since this Bud Light debacle, nobody there is drinking Bud Light. So you'd think that in these stadiums, when Bud Light is not selling, that these sports teams and organizations would realize that their fan base is not woke. But still, they continue on with the Pride nights, but not just the Pride nights. Now we have to invite the blasphemous nun drag queens to give them a community hero award. I mean, where do you think we're going when it comes to sports teams and them having to put rainbows on everything this month just to appease I don't know who?
I mean, frankly, and in my opinion, I don't think that anybody actually wants this. But again, it just goes back to these things that are coming down from the Human Rights Campaign, which are coming down from the World Economic Forum, because they hold so much power. So truthfully, like, I don't think that they care about their consumer base at all. If they cared about what the consumer wanted, what their fans wanted, they would change direction. But the refusal to change direction, in spite of the data showing nobody wants this, we're not going to buy it, we're not going to root for it, but they continue course. it just tells me, okay, they are having their strings pulled from somebody above them. There's a puppet master, they're the puppets, and they're going to do exactly what they're told, no matter how we feel about it. And at the end of the day, like, and maybe call me a tinfoil hat person, but I think it stems back to, a communist insurgency. All these people at the top in the World Economic Forum calling the shots, forcing these agendas down onto everybody, and they don't care if we like it or not. They don't care if people lose their jobs. They don't care if iconic American brands go under. They simply do not care. They are going to force their way no matter what.
No, you're right about that. And a lot of this does go back to that corporate equality index and the World Economic Forum and the globalist takeover of everything. And they love to watch us crumble in this way. Even if it does hurt Americans, they could quite frankly not care less about Americans. Last thing I want to ask you is, during this June, this Pride Month, what can Christians and conservatives do better to reach out to the gay community and make them aware that 95% of conservative Christians are not against the gay community? How can we do better at delivering that message in a way that it resonates? Because I think that we've been struggling to do that for quite some time.
I think it all goes back to, what Jesus teaches in the Bible, which is to love your neighbor, right? The golden rule, do unto others as you would have done unto yourself, which absolutely applies. Like, hey, if you're a Christian, that is great. I'm totally cool with that. If you don't agree with my lifestyle, that is okay with me as well. But that doesn't give you the green light to hate everyone who is gay. And that's what we're starting to see, right? Because everyone is so fed up with the way that things have been going. So now, whereas they might have been a few years ago, like, hey, live and let live. I don't agree with them, but I'm going to let them be. Now they're like, okay, screw all gay people. I don't think you should be able to get married. I don't think you should be able to have kids. They tell me, like, I don't think that you should be able to have a kid. I have a 4-year-old son because of the way I look and my sexual orientation, which has nothing to do with my parenting. So a couple things. Number one, if you feel yourself sliding into that more extreme thought, just check yourself. Always go back. Love your neighbor. Do unto others as you would have done unto you. Show up and support them. You don't have to support the extremism, but you also don't have to be extreme in your response with it. You can show up and be an ally and be an advocate without being ultra woke. There is a really good middle ground that we have had for a long time that is now completely lost.
I really wish we could get back to that, Becky, where we just respect people's decisions in their lives. I think that that's great. I don't need anybody to celebrate my sexual preference or celebrate your sexual preference. I just wish we could all coexist and not really care, because at the end of the day, our sexual preference in the scope of life, in our being to the rest of the world, really matters so little. So I don't know why there's such an emphasis on it, but I appreciate your guidance, your advice, and you being such a pillar of inspiration for so many on both sides of the aisle. And thanks for being with me. God bless you.
I appreciate you, Tomi. You have a great day.
You as well.